I'll take a nap on Rororo at some point. Without further ado, he climbed up Rororo's back. Crush followed a moment later. Rororo glared at Zayusu. He wasn't too happy with the strange sensation of grass creeping along his body, but Zayusu managed to soothe him. Okay, let us go. It's not very stable, so hold on to me. Got it. She wrapped her arms around him, and the prickly grass tickled. This feeling wasn't quite what he expected, and he frowned. What's the matter? It's nothing. Let us go. Okay, Rororo, we're counting on you. What am I so happy about? Hearing Crush's excited voice behind him, Zayusu smiled in spite of himself as they swayed along. The Tove woodlands were now ruled by a new king. They were filled with silence because every living thing held its breath, frightened by him. But this one place was different. The sounds of trees being felled and then transporting filled the area. Heavy iron machines, golems reminiscent of heavy machinery, carried the trees to an area of huge wooden buildings under construction. The structures seemed far from completion. The site was quite big, but there were surprisingly few buildings actually standing. Golems and undead worked there. Most of the undead were elder liches. They wore eye-catching crimson robes. Each lich had a 9-inch demon, a brown-skinned imp with bat wings perched on one shoulder. The imps held their pointed poison tails up to keep them out of the elder lich's way. One of the working elder liches unrolled a piece of paper and gave orders to a golem. The golem stopped as ordered. The lich looked back and forth between the part it had been building and the paper, cocking its head. Eventually it spoke to the imp on its shoulder. After listening to what the elder lich had to say, the imp expressed its understanding and flapped up into the sky. Its movements weren't very elegant, but it soared into the air and scanned the site with its goggling eyes. Soon it found the person it was looking for and immediately glided down to meet her. It was one of the great tomb of Nazaric's guardians of the 6th level, Aura Bella Fiora. She was one of the new rulers of this forest. The dark elf girl was using a rolled-up piece of paper instead of a megaphone to project her voice. An imp flapped down before her and bowed. She asked in a familiar way, "Aha, which team are you from? Mistress Aura, I am C3. A C, huh? Okay. Is there some kind of problem again?" All the workers in this place had letters from A to E. Each team had their own job and location. Aura recalled that the CS were working on the warehouses. Their construction was second furthest along among the different buildings. There's an issue with the thickness of the wood being used for construction. If you could spare a moment, the imp stopped short because a voice started coming from the iron band around Aura's wrist. It's time. It was the ditzy voice of a cheerful girl. When Aura heard it, her expression broke. Her ears drooped, and her face flushed with awkward embarrassment. "Okay, understood, Lady Bubbling Teapot." She responded energetically to the band on her wrist. "It's lunchtime. Let us call it good for this morning." There were almost no monsters working there that required food. Actually, Aura was wearing a ring of sustenance, so she didn't need to eat, drink, or sleep either. But her master had kindly told her, "Make sure you take a proper break." "So sorry, I am going on break. Could you come back in an hour?" "Understood. Then please excuse me." The imp bowed and then noisily took off. After watching the imp fly back toward the warehouses, Aura stretched her shoulders and looked once again at the band on her wrist and grinned ear to ear. It had been a reward from her master for a job well done. Of course, as a guardian created by the supreme beings, it was only natural to work for them and for her master. It would be wrong to charge for her service. It was a matter of course, but she just couldn't refuse when he offered this. She wanted to hear Lady Bubbling Teapot talk more. She gently stroked the band. Her caresses may have been even gentler than the ones she gave the magical beasts she controlled. All the voices the item used came from the supreme being who created Aura. Even just hearing it tell her the time sent joy coursing through her entire body. When she heard her little brother Mare got a ring of Aints Ool gown, she'd been a little jealous. But now, she honestly thought she had gotten the better gift. Her ears sagged, and she polished the band a bit giddily. She nodded in satisfaction as it sparkled in the sunlight. Then she frowned, puzzled. "I wonder why Lord Aints limited the ways I can use it. He'd given her several orders, such as Don T set an alarm at 7:21 and then 19:19. Maybe I should ask I can T do that." Noticing the numbers on the band, she rushed off. She ran to a maid. The 41 maids who worked in the Great Tomb of Nazarick were grotesque homunculi, but on the outside, they looked like beautiful women. This one, however, was different. Her head was a dog-s, a line like a scar ran down the middle of her face. There were also marks that looked like the remains of stitches. It was as if her head had been split right in half and sewn back together, though it seemed impossible. Her name was Pestonia S. Puppydog. She was the head of Nazarick S. Maids and a high-level priest. As you requested, Ivy brought you a hamburger. You have pickles and fries with the skins on the side. And for your beverage, cola woof. During the brief pause before the woof, Aura had a hunch she'd forgotten her signature noise, but she didn't say anything. The drool-worthy aroma was making her too hungry. Even though her ring rendered eating unnecessary, she wasn't unable to eat, and eating made her happy, especially something that tickled her nose with such a tasty aroma. The total effects of your meal are, I am okay. I don't need to hear that. I didn't order it for the ability boosts. Understood, woof. Pestonia went to the food cart. Delicious smells emanated from it. Luanch, luanch. Listening to Aura's food song, Pestonia lifted the cover of a silver tray. Eyes glued on her meal, Aura mentioned something she remembered. A 7 ground beef isn't bad, but I like a mix of beef and pork better. I wonder if you can make 3 patty burgers of that. I'll tell the chef, woof. Great, thanks. Aura grabbed the tray and walked off with a smile on her face. A clump of plants peeked around Zayusu's shoulder as he watched the Dragon Tusk village rise in front of them. It went without saying that it was Crush. Her hands moved, and the grass covering her head parted to reveal the face Zayusu found so beautiful. Are you really planning on riding right in? Are you trying to start a fight? No, the opposite. The Dragon Tusk tribe prioritizes strength. If I get off Rororo now, there might be trouble. I could end up in a fight before I reach the chief. Rororo was a great deterrent against that. As they proceeded, several warriors guarded the village, weapons in hand. They pierced the pair with their eyes. Reacting to the hostility, Rororo let out a faint, low cry. Despite the warning, Zayusu had him continue advancing. If he went any farther, there would be a fight. Once the air crackled with tension, Zayusu finally stopped Rororo and dismounted. Crush came down a moment later. The sharp gazes of several soldiers targeted the pair with palpable pressure. It wasn't simple hostility, but already killer intent. Crush seemed a bit overwhelmed and stopped moving. She had advanced ability as a druid, but she rarely had to bear the brunt of an encounter as a warrior. Instead, Zayusu took a single step forward. He shielded Crush with half his body and raised his voice. I am Zayusu Shasha, and I come on behalf of the Green Claw tribe. I want to speak with your chief. His strong voice subdued their murderous attitudes. The Dragon Tusk warriors seemed a bit overawed, and their stances wavered. Then Crush raised her voice. I am Crush Lulu, acting chief of the Red Eye tribe. I also came to meet with your chief. Hers was a quiet voice, but it contained the confidence and awareness of a tribal leader. She had been inspired by the proud male's voice. The little lady Lizardman who had been there a moment before had vanished. I'll say it again. We came to see your chief. Where is he? Just then the atmosphere shifted violently. It was almost as if emotions had taken on physical shape and assaulted Zayusu and Crush. Rororo's foreheads immediately started writhing. He opened his jaws wide and let out threatening growls, moving his heads to intimidate. The Lizardmen shrank back for a moment, as if frightened at the huge Hydra's continued high-pitched cries. You don't really need to protect me. I don't intend to. You came here of your own free will. But the one who should get this kind of glare, as the one responsible for the breaking up of their tribes, is me. More warriors gradually gathered by the entrance to the village. They all had magnificent physiques and faint scars in their scales. They had probably made it through some intense battles. But Zayusu could tell their chief was not among them. They were all mere warriors. There was no one with the dignity of his elder brother or the extraordinariness of Crush. No one had the impact of a chief. The only sound breaking the silence was Rororo's warning growls. Not a single Lizardman relaxed their guard. Then Crush gasped quietly, but Zayusu didn't lose his composure when the Lizardman they were waiting for appeared. He sensed the immensely powerful creature walking toward them before he'd seen him. Still, he couldn't help being a little shocked when he finally came into view. To describe this Lizardman in a word, monstrous. He was huge, over 7.5 feet tall. That alone wasn't enough to make him grotesque, but there were reasons to use that expression. First, his right arm was big and thick. It had the strange appearance of a fiddler crab's large claw. His left arm wasn't skinny, It was about the size of Zayusu's. His right arm was bizarrely thick. It wasn't puffed up due to disease or deformity, but muscle. He was missing his ring and pinky fingers on his left hand. His mouth seemed sliced open, extending around to the back of his head. His tail was smashed flat. It looked less like a lizardman's tail and more like an alligator's, but the most eye-catching thing was the brand on his chest. The design was different from Zayusu's, but its meaning was the same. He was a traveler. He took a close look at Zayusu and Crush. A sound came like pieces of dry wood bumping together. The grotesque lizardman's sharp teeth rubbed against one another. Apparently he was laughing. So you made it, her bearer of frost pain. His deep, heavy voice fit his odd looks. He was probably just talking normally, but he sounded daunting. Pleased to meet you. I've come from the Green Claw tribe. The lizardman waved a hand, as if to say, not necessary, not necessary. How about just your names, Zayusu Shasha? And this is Crush Lulu. Is that a plant monster? Well, you did bring a hydra, so it's not so strange that you have another pet monster. No. Crush began taking off her clothes. The massive lizardman waved his hand again, as if to say it wasn't necessary. Don't take that joke seriously, you goobs. He gave Crush a bored look as she rustled her grass. Then he turned to Zayusu. So I guess I'll ask why you ray here. Before that, could I ask your name? Yeah, I am the chief of the Dragon Tusk tribe, Zenbel Gugu. Call me Zenbel, he said with a toothy grin. Zayusu had known this one was chief when he saw him, but the reality of a traveler in charge was still surprising. On the other hand, it made sense. There was no way a male like this could be just a traveler. When he appeared, the hostility from the others vanished. He was a male with that much authority, as well as military might and unifying force. You can call me Zayusu too. So Zenbel, I imagine a strange monster showed up here lately. Yeah, the messenger from the Great One. If it came, then that makes this ease. Zenbel lifted a hand to pause Zayusu mid-sentence. I have an idea what you're going to say, but we only trust the strong. Take up your sword. The split mouth of this huge lizardman, Zenbel Gugu, chief of the Dragon Tusk tribe, bared his sharp teeth good-humoredly. What? Crush was the only one to gasp in surprise. The warriors in the area and Zayusu appeared to approve. How straightforward, chief of the Dragon Tusk. That is a clear, concise judgment with no time wasting. And you ray a brilliant messenger. I guess I should have expected that, since you have frost pain though, the strongest gets selected as chief. For a lizardman, this was utterly natural. But for issues that impact the continuation of the tribe, is that okay? Shouldn't many people consult one another and discuss things from different angles before deciding? Crush thought these things and then found such logic mysterious. Everyone looking on, both males and females, agreed with their chief's decision. Until recently she would have said that the way I make decisions too. So why am I doubting it now? Where had that doubt come from? Am I under some kind of magic attack? That couldn't be. She was fairly confident she wouldn't lose to any lizardman on the marsh with her magic skills. That pride told her it wasn't any mystical art. Crush moved her eyes to look at the two males, Zayusu and Zenbel. Next to each other they looked like a child and an adult. Of course, as a caster, she knew physique wouldn't decide everything, but seeing this much of a gap between them made her heart shriek. I hate this, I hate this, I hate the idea of them know him fighting. She reached out within herself to try and understand this peculiar feeling that had come up in her heart. Why am I so against it? Why don't I want them to fight? There was one answer. She didn't even have to think about it. She smiled faintly, a little awkwardly, and with a bit of a sneer. You just have to admit it, Crush. You don't want Zayusu to fight because you're scared he could get hurt or even die. In other words, that is what you think. Participants in these types of fights almost never died. But if they almost never died, that meant that rarely they did. If things got too heated, someone could easily be killed. She didn't want to lose her husband by making him fight like that, thought the single female. So in her heart she accepted Zayusu's proposal. No male has ever treated me like that. But that doesn't mean I should be a pushover. What do they call that? Easy. I feel kinda happy but sad. Oh, I don't know. Having quietly acknowledged her emotions, she went over to Zayusu, who was warming up, and tapped him on the shoulder. Do you need anything else to get ready? Nope. I am good to go. She tapped his shoulder again. It was a sturdy shoulder. Right around the age, she began to understand the world around her. She had started down the path to becoming a priest. Along the way, she had touched many males' bodies during prayers, applying medicine and casting spells. But she felt she detouched Zayusu far more than the rest, so this is Zayusu's body. He was starting to get excited about the fight, and his muscles were bulging. It felt very masculine to her. Is something wrong? Apparently he thought it odd that Crush hadn't moved her hand. It is a priestess blessing, aha. The spirits of your ancestors will help me, even though I am from a different tribe. The spirits of our ancestors aren't so narrow-minded. Good luck. She removed her hand from the shoulder of the male she loved, prayed for his victory, and apologized to the spirits of her ancestors for the lie. Zenbul was similarly prepping. In his right hand, he gripped a huge spear, a steel halberd of almost 10 feet that a normal lizardman wouldn't have been able to use without both hands. Then he casually swung it. The sweeping motion displaced enough air that Crush could feel the wind where she was. Can you? No, will you be okay? I am planning on it one way or another. She had been planning to ask if he could win, but she stopped herself. Zayusu was fighting because he knew he had to win. In that case, he wouldn't lose. She had known him only a day. She had traveled with him for only half of one, but still she knew this male was worth falling for. Oki, are you ready, bearer of frost pain? Zayusu, everything's fine. I am ready anytime. He casually turned from Crush and advanced into the circle that was to serve as the arena. Crush sighed, unable to help but watch him as he walked away. The warmth in Zayusu's shoulder, where Crush had touched him for so long, although it probably wasn't really that long, was fading. The duel he was going into was a simplified version of the type used to decide a chief. Since it was a solo fight, it was against the rules to have a third party cast spells. When the warmth made his heart buzz, when she didn't take her hand away, he thought maybe she had cast defensive magic. But there was no way that Crush, as acting chief of her tribe, didn't know the rules. So why did it get him this excited? Was it because I am a male? Was it because I want to impress a female? My brother once called me a dead tree, but apparently that's not the case. Zayusu entered the circle of lizardmen. He took frost pain from his hip and lifted it up. Summoned by his will, a frosty whiteness clung to the blade. The surrounding lizardmen gasped. They were survivors of the Sharp-Edged tribe who knew Frost Pain's former owner. Others had seen what Frost Pain could do. When Zenbul saw Zayusu invoke the power only a true owner of Frost Pain could, his vicious expression cracked into delight, the delight of a growling animal with its teeth bared. I don't want anyone to get hurt too badly, Zayusu declared coldly in response to the fierce aura coming off the lizardman before him. At this provocation, the emotions of the warriors in the crowd surged in a bad direction, but the sharp slap of something striking water and the extraordinarily huge spray that followed immediately calmed them down. Zenbul had hit the marsh with the tip of his spear. Oh, then don't let me admit defeat. Listen up, you guys. If I lose, this guy's your chief. No objections, no arguments, and no whining. They couldn't have accepted it, but none of the warriors argued. If Zayusu did kill Zenbul, they would probably grit their teeth and obey. Okay, now we're ready. Come at me like you mean to kill me. I am probably one of the strongest guys you've ever fought. You might be right, got it. And if I die, he flicked his eyes behind him to Crush. Sure, I'll get your female home safe. She's not mine yet, but okay. But you majorly going for her, right? That plant monster. Is she that worth it? She really is. They ignored the lizardman shrinking into a ball and cradling her head. I'd like to see. If I win, maybe I'll strip her for a peek before I send her home. Up until a moment ago, Zayusu had been pumped just for the fight, but now a new energy flowed through him. Well, now I've got a really good reason not to lose. I'm not showing Crush to the likes of you. You're crazy about her. Yeah, absolutely nuts. They ignored the cringing lizardman shaking her head. Other females tried to talk to her. Zenbul laughed, tremendously happy. Then you'd better win. If you lose, it's all over. Oh, I plan on it. Zayusu and Zenbul glared at each other. They were done chatting. Let us go, come at me. It was a short exchange, but neither one moved. When the spectators started to get impatient, Zayusu was the first one to inch forward. Despite being in a wetter part of the marsh, he made no noise. Zenbul just waited for him, immobile. The moment Zayusu got within a certain distance, a roar whooshed by in front of him. He jumped back. It was Zenbul's spear. There was no technique, he just swung it around. Still, that was what made him so ferocious. Zayusu prepared to charge, and Zenbul held his spear at the ready. He was swinging that huge thing around with just his right arm. With a motion like a whirlwind, he was back in his stance immediately after. Zayusu wondered something.